esteemed members of the Executive Committee of Greywater Corporation, what an honor you show me in asking me to give the keynote address at this annual general meeting of our august enterprise. First, a small matter, and I have special permission for this request from our president himself. Would you all kindly indulge me by turning off your cell phones and iPods? The North American markets are all closed now. Tokyo does not open for another 2 hours. So, you won't be missing out on anything. And you will be helping me considerably to maintain my focus. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much. Merci beaucoup. Very nice. Saint-Emilion, 1967. A good year. Oh, nicely corked. I have been tasked here tonight to deliver a report on my previous existence as an ape. Strictly speaking, I will not be able to fulfill this task here today. I do apologize. Almost 10 whole years separate me from apehood, which, when measured by the slow creeping calendar of our Earth's history, is a mere nothing. But when spent galloping alone, as I have in essence been doing, those 10 years of enforced evolutionary fast-forwarding are an unending gap of time. It is true, I was mentored for short stretches along the way by some generous and superior human beings. I was offered advice, encouragement, applause, and even the occasional orchestral accompaniment. But those humans who did support me on my course, to maintain my metaphor, kept themselves well off the actual racetrack and in the stand. Nicely said. My achievement would not have been possible if I had stubbornly chosen to retain my primal self, the memories of my youth. In fact, the very first commandment I gave myself, the prime directive of my existence post-apehood, was to deny all traces of my past reality. To use human terminology, I, a free ape, I fixed this burden of denial onto my soul. I harnessed this yoke of self-deception onto my existence of my own free will. The collateral damage was that all memories of my previous self started to fade. If at first the gate to my return to apehood, assuming my Oman mentors would have permitted my repatriation, was as wide as the heavens above. That with every mile on the enforced path of my progress, my evolution, that opening shrunk in height and width. Oh. I sensed myself more and more contained in the world of humanity. The wind that raged from my past abated, and today is a mere draft which tickles my heels. And this crack in the past through which this draft arrives, and through which I myself once came, that crack has become so small that if I ever had the willpower and the energy to rendition myself, I would have to scrape the hide off my backside to be able to squeeze through and return. Oh. To be frank, even though I have learned to enjoy adorning my speech with the poetry of metaphor, very nice arrière-goût. Pardon me. To be frank, your own apehood, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, insofar as you have something similar in your past, is not further from you than mine is from me. This draft from the past tickles the heels of all who walk this earth, from the great Achilles to the littlest chimpanzee. But before you here tonight, I will try to complete within the bounds of my limited ability the mission, the debriefing task assigned to me, and I make this attempt to do so with great pleasure. The very first thing I learned on my journey to manhood was how to give and take a handshake. A handshake is a token, a signifier, an embodiment of that great virtue, man's prize above all else: frankness, openness, the very sensation which gives man's that edifying presumption of moral legitimacy. Pardon me. Oh, yeah. Very pleased to make your acquaintance. Oh, it's okay. I don't have bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Put it here. How is your family these days?
They're very good.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, it's a young crowd tonight. Well, honored to make your acquaintance. You look very beautiful tonight. You see? I'm not too bad at it. Always remembering to look human beings right in the eyes who shake their hands. Remembering not to pinch too many women's bottoms while you're at it. And today, now that I have reached the apex of my career as a human being, to that frank handshake, I now add frank human discourse. Of course, I am certain there's very little that is new that I can add to the collective wisdom of our exalted corporation, and will, I suspect, fail miserably in what I have been tasked here to deliver. But I will try my best to sketch out the path this one particular ape took to infiltrate and occupy the world of human being. Hard work and strict obedience will make you free is the motto of Greywater Corporation. And I, like all our employees, have it, as it were, invisibly tattooed on my skin. Arbeit macht frei. We focus on morals and ethics and integrity. Of course, I would not venture to proffer even my minuscule tidbits of recon intel that follow were I not deemed a valuable asset here in our corporation. For 5 years, I did tours of duty for Greywater's peace and security details in trouble spots around the globe. We kicked a lot of ass. These days, I spend my time back at the Greywater compound as a certified hand-to-hand combat instructor. I teach how to pop out a human eye with one poke of the index finger. Would you like to learn how to pop out a human eye, sir? Could come in handy some night in a dark alley. It's all about conviction and hating your enemy with sincerity. Then just jab your index finger into one of his eyes, twist, and pull. I had a hard time learning that one myself. It's not part of my ape nature. We apes usually settle a disagreement with a lot of growling and chest thumping. And then pick each other's fleas for a bit. I'm also the chief instructor of the Tactical Evasive Action Course as part of the intense training of our international security forces. And as a precondition to graduating, each candidate must undergo a jungle terrain obstacle race, which I designed myself. I suppose it is no surprise that none of my students has ever been able to beat me. You may have seen me in my starring role in combat missions, a Special Forces military combat reality TV show. I get more tweets one day than the Pope himself. Sorry about that. All this gives me a certain unshakable confidence in the value of what I am about to share with you. After all, you are shareholders, right? So, I was born in Africa, on the Gold Coast. Now, due declaration of conflict of interest. For the details of how I was captured, I have to rely entirely on the accounts of others. A Greywater hunting expedition was hiding in the bushes near the watering hole frequented by my family of apes. that time shared many a fine bottle of Chablis with the leader of that expedition. Shots were fired. I was the only one who was hit. I took 2 bullets. One here grazed my cheek, leaving a nice scar so that I don't even have to shave there anymore. Hence the ugly and inappropriate name I was given. Red Peter? Or perhaps one of my early handlers was referring to some other part of my anatomy. Ugh. The second shot hit me in my right thigh below my hip. The reason why today I walk with a slight limp. You can still see the scar of that entry wound. Recently, I read a piece by one of those thousands mad dog journalists who sell their papers with op-ed articles about me, claiming my ape nature has not been entirely repressed. The supposed proof is that whenever visitors come by, I enjoy dropping my trousers to shoulder them the entry wound of that second shot. Somebody should pull out the fingernails of that journalist, one by one, slowly. Then waterboard him for a month in Guantanamo. I can drop my trousers anytime, anywhere, for anyone I choose. You won't find anything but a nicely groomed ape hide with the scar from a... And I will make sure to choose my words diplomatically here. With the scar from a vicious, cowardly shot. Everything's up front here. I have nothing to hide. But those keyboard-thumping jokers parrot some airy-fairy etiquette and then invoke it as the truth. If that journalist were to drop his pants in front of his house guests, it would be a different thing. And I recognize it as a mark of his discretion that he does not expose his minuscule self in that manner. But he should keep his hypocritical sensitivity to himself. When I awoke, after being hit by those 2 shots, and now we slowly enter the time frame where my own memories begin. I was in a cage below decks on a gray water cargo ship. Not a four-walled cage, rather one with 3 walls of bars that had been attached to a wooden crate, with the crate forming the 4th wall. The whole thing was too low for me to stand up in, and too narrow to permit me to sit down. I had to stay crouched, which meant my knees were permanently shaking. I kept my face toward the crate side, with the cage bars biting into my backside, so I would not have to look at any of my human captors. This is a gray water stand and operate procedure, and is thought to be the best way to rendition wild animals at the beginning of their confinement. Based on my own experience, I can't deny that from the perspective of the human agenda, this is quite correct. the first time in my life, I had no escape route. Right in front of me was a crate, with each board tightly joined one to the other. There was one slight crack between two of the boards, which, when I discovered it, gave rise to a happy howl. Such ignorance. The crack wasn't even big enough for me to slip my tail through. And even pulling with all my ape strength was not enough to enlarge the hole. Apparently, in the beginning, I was told later, I made an unusually little amount of noise, which led everyone to believe that either I would die very quickly, or if I succeeded in surviving the critical early days, that I would be very malleable, trainable. And I survived. Did I crumble? Did I lay down and die? Oh, no, not I. I will survive. Oh, and as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I've got all my life to live. I've got all my love to give. And I'll survive. I will survive. Hey, hey. You like that, huh? Stifled sobs, painful picking of fleas, catatonic licking of a cocoa nut, banging my head against the crate, sticking my tongue out whenever anyone came near. These were the first activities of my new existence. A captured ape, there's no life like it. But through all this, my one and only feeling was, there is no escape. Today, I can only describe my 8 sensations of that time period using human words, and thus, of course, I am misrepresenting reality. But even if I now can no longer reach my 8 truths, this description in your human language should help you a certain way along the road to understanding. Previously, in my 8th existence, in every terrain, I had had many escape route options. Now I have none. I was renditioned into captivity. If I had been nailed to my crate, as your Savior was to his cross, my freedom of movement could not have been more restricted. Why was I incarcerated like this? Scrape the flesh between your toes, and you will not find an answer. Squeeze your backside against the rungs of the cage until they almost slice you into pieces, and you will not find any reason. I could even say, rendition me to Syria, and you would not be able to torture any rational explanation into me. I had no escape route, but I had to find one, and quickly, or else I would not survive. Blasted against that crate for too much longer, and I would die for sure and be carried out in a body bag. But standard operating procedure for apes in gray water custody is, as I said, to detain them in this kind of crate prison. So, I had to cease being an ape. Whoa. A nice simple solution that must have come to me somehow from my belly, because apes think with their bellies. Pardon me. I'm afraid You may not understand exactly what I mean by the word escape. I am using the word in its accepted meaning. I deliberately do not use the word freedom. Freedom is a powerfully seductive word, which your so-called civilized world uses very cleverly, very effectively to entrap and occupy whole continents. When I use the word escape, I'm not talking about the full, huge, 360-degree feeling of true freedom. As an ape, I may have at one point known this feeling. I can't remember. I have met humans who yearn for it. No, I was not seeking freedom, then or now. Freedom is among the most exalted of feelings, and the proffering of even a distorted mirage of freedom evokes an equally powerful, if counterfeit, feeling. One of my favorite hobbies, when I can find the time, is going to this newfangled circus company that is all the rage, Circus of the Sun. It tours the globe with its many shows. I go mainly so I can watch the trapeze artists high up in the roof of the tent doing their flips, somersaults, and catches. Once even, I saw one of them suspend the other by clamping her hair between his teeth. So this is human freedom, I thought. Ego-boosted, narcissistic triviality. Oh, what a mockery of Holy Mother Nature. There is no human-made structure that could withstand the laughter of my family of apes at seeing such a silly sight. No, I was not looking for freedom, just escape. Anyway out, left, right, liberation. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I had no other demands. Even if the escape was driven by the delusion of freedom, my expectations were so minimal. The self-deception would be an equally small matter. Move on. Just move on. Progress of some kind. Just cease and desist, standing there pressed against the wall of the grate with both hands held high. Today, I can see clearly that without the immense inner peace I had imposed on myself at that time, I would never have escaped. And actually, I suppose I owe my entire success, everything I have achieved, to that inner calm that came over me those first days aboard that ship. This calm I owe to the crew. They were good people despite everything. Today, I can enjoy the sound of their heavy footfalls along the corridor next to my cage that back then echoed through my semi-somnolent consciousness. They had the habit of attacking every action with a great deliberateness. If one of them wanted to rub his eye, he would raise his hand slowly as if it was weighted down by a dumbbell. Their jokes were off color, but sincere. Their laughter was always mixed with a rough, dangerous sounding but harmless cough. They always had something in the mouth ready to spit out, and did not care where they hawked. They complained endlessly that my fleas jumped over onto them, but they were never really angry at me for this. They knew that fleas thrived in my hide, that fleas are jumpers, and they accepted all that. Occasionally, when they were off shift, some of them would gather in a semicircle around me, not saying anything, just grunting back and forth to each other, sitting on boxes and smoking their cigars. Mm. Oh. Oh. Mm. Oh. Mm. Oh. Oh. If I made the slightest movement, they would slap their knee, and every now and then, one of them tickled me with a stick in spots that I enjoyed. If I were invited to take a cruise on that ship again today, I would most certainly decline. But equally certainly, my memories of what I experienced below decks are not all bad. The calm, the peace that I acquired in the circle of these men restrained me from attempting to escape. Looking back, it seems to me that I must have suspected that somehow I could escape in order to survive, but that this escape would not be achieved by flight. I'm not totally sure if flight was a possibility, but I believe an ape is always capable of finding some option. Today, with my teeth, I have to be careful when cracking open any kind of nutshell. But back then, given time, I would have been able to bite through the lock on that door. I did not try. What would I have achieved? I would have been recaptured the moment I poked my head out, been locked up in an even worse cave. Or maybe I would have succeeded in reaching the cages of the other animals, like the giant boa opposite me, where I could have been strangled to death. Or if I had succeeded in gaining the deck and jumping overboard, I would have bobbed for a while on the ocean waves and then drowned. Acts of desperation. I was not actually calculating all this through with man-like thinking, but influenced by my environment, I made choices and behaved as if I actually had. Yet, I was not really strategizing, but I was watching quietly. I saw human beings going back and forth. Always the same faces, the same movements. And it seems to me as if it were one and the same person. Bored human. Catatonic. An ambitious agenda glimmering on the horizon. No one actually made any contractual promises or mentioned future considerations. That if I managed to absorb the existence of my captors, if I became human, the bars would vanish. Such lofty promises in return for seemingly unachievable objectives are not made. I would have negotiated for such a contract in vain. But once the objectives are achieved, once the territory has been secured, then, suddenly, after the fact, The promises are delivered exactly as one had hoped for. Now, there was nothing about being Uman that really attracted me. If I had wanted true freedom, I would have chosen the ocean waves over the dull, stultified look of these Uman beings. I observed them for a long time before I had any such thought. In fact, it was the accretion of my observation that ended up nudging me in the direction of my destiny. It was so easy to imitate the crew. I was able to spit after a few days. So initially, we took turns spitting into each other's faces. The difference was that afterwards, I licked my face clean. They did not. And soon, I was smoking cigars like a real made man. And if I flicked the ash casually with one finger, the whole cargo hold collapsed with guffaws. Only occasionally did I put the lit end into my mouth by mistake. The whiskey gave me the most difficulty. The smell revolted me. I tried. I forced myself with all my power, but it took weeks to get used to it. This inner struggle was for some strange reason taken more seriously by the crew than any other signifier of my progress towards manhood. I couldn't really differentiate them one from the other, but there was this certain member of the crew who kept returning all the time, at all hours of the night or day, alone or with his buddy. He stood in front of me with a bottle and gave me lessons. He needed to understand me. He wanted to solve the riddle of my being. He opened the bottle slowly, looked to me to see if I understood. I will confess, I watched him with a wild and frenzied concentration. A more driven student of mankind no Uman teacher could find anywhere on this whole earth. Once opened, he lifted it to his mouth, with my eyes following him right into his throat. He nods, happy with me, puts the bottle to his lips. I realize finally what is happening and start scratching myself all over, squeaking madly. He is happy and tips the bottle, takes a gulp. Desperate and impatient to imitate him, I dirty myself in my cage, which makes him even happier. And with a wide swing of his arm, he brings the bottle again to his mouth and, bending backwards, exaggerating for pedagogical effect, downs the whole bottle in one chug-a-lug. I am exhausted by my overwhelming desire to imitate. I can't continue. And I hang limp on the bars as he ends the demonstration by rubbing his belly with a grin. Now begins the practical side of the lesson. Am I not too exhausted by the theoretical? Yes, I am totally exhausted. I am kaput. But my destiny calls. I reach as best I can for the profit bottle. shivering. This accomplishment gives me a shot of adrenaline. I lift the bottle. My imitation of his action is so perfect, it is impossible to differentiate from the original. I take a gulp and throw it away in horror. In horror. Even though the bottle is empty and I am reacting only to the fumes, I throw the bottle to the floor in disgust. To the disappointment of my teacher, and to the even bigger disappointment of myself. And it does not earn me any merit points, either with him or myself, that after I have thrown away the bottle, I remember, in an inspired act of personification, to stroke my belly and grin. All too often, the lessons ended like this, in disappointment. And to the credit of my teacher, he was never angry at me, although he sometimes did hold the lit end of his cigar to my fur in a place I could not reach until my fur started to smolder. But then he put it out himself with his nice big hand. He was not angry at me. He saw that we were on the same side, fighting my surging ape nature, and that I had the harder task. What a victory for both he and I when one night in front of a huge audience, there must have been some kind of celebration. A ghetto blaster was playing. An officer was circulating among the sailors, and I, unnoticed, grabbed one of the bottles of whiskey that had been left standing inadvertently next to my cage. With growing attention from the company, with perfect by-the-book movements, I twisted open the cap, put the bottle to my lips, and, with no hesitation, without pulling a face like a real professional drinker, my eyes popping, my throat bobbing, I polished the whole thing off. I downed the whole thing in one gulp. And then, not out of revulsion, but with great artistry, I threw the bottle away. Oh. Yes, I did forget to rub my belly. But instead, as I had no other choice, with my senses roaring and possessed by an uncontrollable urge, I shouted out a short and sweet hurrah. I broke out into Oman speech. And with that simple cry, I joined humanity. The party stopped dead, and echoes around the cargo hold of, "Hey, listen, he is speaking," was like a kiss over the whole of my non-sudoriferous hide. I repeat, I was not seduced by wanting to imitate Oman. I was imitating for no other reason than that I was looking to escape. My inspired stint of Oman vocalization achieved little and was only a temporary trial. My Oman voice deserted me again right away, to return only after a few weeks. And the disgust with the whiskey came back even more strongly. But I was now happily and permanently set on my course toward escarpment and was handed over to my first personal trainer, I recognized right away that my future held only one of two options. Either I would be placed in some zoo somewhere, or if I accelerated my humanizing efforts enough, I could become a full-fledged employee of Greywater Corporation. A zoo is just another cage with bars and would be for me just a transit station for my ultimate destination, a body bag. I did not hesitate. I put my entire energy and strength into my education and training so that I could become an asset to Greywater and the peace and security industry. Live free or die. Huh. How one is capable of learning when you have to. And ladies and gentlemen, I learned. If you are desperate for an escape route, you learn with every hair on your body. You carry a whip and become your own slave driver and beat your flesh to a pulp if you show even the slightest resistance to yourself. I drove my ape nature out of my being so fast, it infiltrated my first personal trainer and he started to ape me. He started acting like a monkey and had to leave the training compound to be checked into a mental institution. But luckily, they released him quite quickly, and the corporation welcomed him back. As I became more confident in my ape ability, the head office started following my programs, even sending out press releases about my amazing capabilities. I was investing in hope, as the Greywater slogan says. I used up a lot of personal trainers. I enrolled in all the different classes so that I could acquire the full range of knowledge you need to serve in international peace operations, urban warfare, counterinsurgency training, advanced interrogation techniques, riot control, heavy weapons deployment. To accelerate my learning, I went to each one of my different trainers. I picked them up. 5 different ones at a time. I placed them in separate ranges and rooms by running non-stop from the gym to the classroom to the shooting range and back again. I learned everything simultaneously. Oh, what progress! Rays of insight and civilization penetrating from all sides into my awakening brain. I can't deny it. I was ecstatic. But careful not to overestimate things. Then, and even less now. Thanks to a super ape effort, the like of which never witnessed before on this earth, I was able to attain the average education of a civilized North American. All right, no great achievement perhaps, except it got me my humanitarian way out, my escape route. It got me out of my imprisonment. As true freedom was not an option, I had no choice. So, I completed my basic training at Greywater's security compound and became a certified member of our quick reaction force. For 5 years, I was deployed to a variety of conflict areas and red zones around the globe. Some so secret, I am not even at liberty to disclose them. I have mastered the finer points of civilization. how most quickly and most effectively to kill another human being. I had cum laude citation from my small arms, heavy weapons, and shoulder-fired heat-seeking missile instructors. Ma'am, I can kill you 10 different ways, right here, right now. It's okay, fellas. I'm not going to do anything. Don't worry. It's just an illustration. You're safe. It's okay. Oh. Some food. Should try it. All human intelligence, all human creativity and energy is harnessed to perfect more efficient and more lethal ways to kill your fellow human. This is the engine that drives all human progress. And I, once a mere ape, am proud to stand in front of you here tonight as a being that has managed to follow in the slipstream of that gigantic wheel of civilization as it moves inexorably forward. My deepest apologies. Looking back on my development and my goals to this point, I can't say I have any serious complaints, but neither am I totally satisfied. After serving my tours of duty in trouble spots around the globe, protecting the oil and mineral assets of our nation's corporate citizens, I now enjoy my more quiet role as a certified hand-to-hand combat instructor at Greywater's Central 7,300-acre private military facility training compound. I believe I have been a genuine asset to this corporation. And I'm told I should be proud to have been part of the extraordinary growth pattern which private military entrepreneurship has enjoyed around the world. Your annual reports detail the growth in 20 short years from a weapons training compound to a multi-billion-dollar business contracting out civilians to the peace industry. And we have scoured the ends of the earth to recruit qualified professionals. Former Chilean commandos, U.S. Navy SEALs, British Special Services, South African secret police, ex-Contras from Central America. All are paid six-figure wages for their skills. For humans, it makes starting and fighting a war so much easier. You don't need citizenry. You just need money. As a private corporation, Greywater is not subject to any military law, nor oversight from any elected politician. As you can see from the nice new promotion, Greywater has the ability to quietly and efficiently deploy to anywhere in the world to create a more secure environment for our customer. Our goal is to foster a positive environment which promotes civilian security, allowing commerce to flourish, so we can move forward. We have adequate numbers of highly trained personnel in operational readiness in our network to be able, if we wanted, to topple governments around the world. With God's grace, we are, as our president says, the alpha and omega of military outsourcing. Sorry about that. I don't understand or care much for all this talk of millions and billions of dollars and profit potential. And those lines that keep heading upwards on those graphs in your annual report. In my downtime, I prefer a quiet, modest life. I have a fashionable condo by the waterfront with a well-stocked wine cellar. I enjoy sitting in my rocking chair after a hard day's training new recruits and drinking a bottle of wine on my own. And believe me, I can tell the difference between a Merlot and a Cabernet Sauvignon. The whiskey I offer my guests is the finest Scotch single malt, even if I never touch the stuff myself. My wife never learned man speak, and has the pained look in her eye of a captured, trained circus animal who relies heavily on sedatives to keep herself functioning. This disturbs me greatly, even if I am the only one who recognizes her pain. But at night, she is a tender and suitable companion who helps me to fill the dark pit of my alienation. I have achieved what I set out to achieve back there in the hold of that gray water cargo ship. In that cage with the 3 walls of bars and a 4th made of a crate. I cannot say it was not worth it. Now Greywater is planning to capture and train enough apes to man a full commando unit of security agents. I was, it seems, a highly successful prototype. This is part of a lucrative investment opportunity. Organizing to face the challenges of tomorrow. Part of a dynamic business plan and bold new corporate expansion of the future, which you shareholders, I'm certain, will only be too happy to be part of. Whoa. I am not offering or seeking any kind of no man judgment, good or bad, right or wrong, on such a development plan. I'm merely providing you due diligence. I'm merely trying to spread knowledge around. I'm merely reporting thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Greywater started with $200,000 in contracts in the year 2000. For the coming year, we are projecting income of over $10 billion. We operate in 50 countries around the globe and on every continent except Antarctica. Be part of this lucrative investment opportunity. Coming soon, the Red Peter Brigade. Greywater Corporation's next entrepreneurial venture is certain to be a major new revenue stream and profit center. Our dynamic business plan and bold new corporate expansion will allow you a chance to participate in the exploding profit potential of this major growth industry. Make a killing. Invest in Greywater.